Wave, that is a Shadow Dot build. Full skeleton mage build with sacrifice golem will be better than the golem build. Do I think that is now true? I don't know the exact numerical difference between the two things. There is a world where it could slightly eke out. Yes. What up, Thomas? Who's everyone and how do I contact them? I don't know what that question is. Thorns? Thorns doesn't crit. Thorns is physical damage, so Thorns, the difference here is vulnerable sacrifice, and I'm pretty sure that Thorns builds are using their minions to increase how much Thorns damage you output. They might sacrifice their mages for a Vuln multi, maybe. I don't know. Would a physical corpse explosion build? I don't really think a physical corpse explosion build is actually part of the meta in a way where it doesn't, where in a way, I don't think that a corpse explosion build, which is sacrificing its minions, that isn't a damage over time build, is actually a thing. In math now, see what builds got better. Do you happen to have an idea already? Asking because I stopped playing my blade, so I wanted to know how much better it is. I'm currently doing the calculation for how the sacrifice changes impact the current meta of builds. So, and here we can re-add Bone Spirit. So a Shadow crit build is going to be equal to 1 multiplied by a Shadow crit build. One plus this divided by 1 plus this and parentheses and parentheses multiplied by 1 6 in G6. Okay. One plus I10 plus G10. Is this accurate? Let's do it this way real quick, just to see if I come out with the right numbers. So this is going to be equal to 1 plus this divided by 1 plus this. Okay. Yeah. But we also need Bone Spirit. And the reason why Bone Spirit is relevant here is because this should be equal to... So hold on, let me take this. Bone Spirit is equal to 1 times times this. Right? What up, Doc? Would you say to hold off for more testing once the patch drops, or do you think it will still be very strong? It got only stronger, Justin. Would Starless Skies help in the Blight Ebon Piercer build? It's whether or not you can fit it on successfully, and I don't think that you can. But that is only because Retribution currently apply. Ooh, did they have bug fixes? So Retribution currently double dips and applies twice to bosses, and you kill things in their stagger phase, so it's currently worth 2 30% multipliers. So I think Lidless Wall would now be good with Doombringer and a buff to Bone Storm for the Blight build. I wouldn't use Doombringer or Lidless Wall on the Blight build. When going through the pit, is there any reason to fight the mobs in the first area, or can you just rush the first portal? Yeah, so there aren't... I don't believe that there's typically enough monsters in the second area alone to spawn the boss. The only thing that you need to do is kill monsters. So I don't know why you would rush the first, but like, you don't have to make it through the first portal to even summon the boss. Theoretically, if there were enough monsters in the first area. Is Bone Spirit going to be keeping up with top builds? Yeah. Bone Spirit was ahead of everything other than minions. What's a good price to sell Living Steel? Whatever the merchant will buy it for. TLDR on the patch notes. Holy Bolts got nerfed. Sacrificial builds that sacrifice their minions got stronger. Shadow Mages got a little bit stronger. Blood builds got a little bit of love. No problem. So Where's Otter? It's not out until Monday, yeah?
Are y'all still chit-chatting?
Yeah, we're just chit-chatting. Hi, Macro.
What's up, Macro?
Let's see. Maybe he'll give me a call. Hello? There we go. Jump into a voice chat. I'm here. No, I'm here. No, I'm here.
Hey,
No, I'm here. What up, everybody?
now he's here.
Now he's
Alrighty.
here.
I
I'm
got a
gonna make
question.
you. I'm making you a moderator, so you never have to ask for permission to join this channel ever again.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I will be abusing my power, obviously, no question.
Yes.
That's what we like to hear.
Okay. So I have a question for y'all.
Mhm.
So I got to the end of doing my calculations for the changes for sacrificing and the relative bonuses that we get out of it. If I'm looking at putting on the aspect sacrificial
Correct.
and figuring out how much relative damage, like what's its relative damage multiplier across the different builds.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I got to, for a shadow crit build, so one that's using shadow damage and vulnerable damage and critical strike damage.
Which will be more than what I
Sever.
got. Which will be more than what I got. But go ahead.
That one looks like it's a 42% damage multiplier.
Sounds about right. Yep, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Shadow dot comes out to be about a 25% damage multiplier.
That's exactly what I got. 25.5%.
Bone Spear is a 26%. Blood Builds is a 31%, and Bone Spirit is similarly a 31% multiplier. Does that sound like what you all got? So like,
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much
Yes.
on the head.
Right on the money.
okay. So if you put, let's say I put this aspect onto my piece of gear right now. Yeah, because this is what you said in chat, right? Shadow Dot is very slightly better than Conceited. Bone Spear is better than Conceited. Blood and Bone Spirit are both better than Conceited. I mean, they're better than Intercom. And very specifically, Sever or Old Infinimist or New Secret Proc Blight build I want to build all like pretty drastically overperform with it. It's now a 40% multiplier.
Yes.
That's crazy good.
It's really good on any builds that are able to dip into all three sacrifices
Mm-hmm.
Well,
as
keep in mind,
damage multipliers.
too, the blood golem sacrifice is no joke with sacrificial. So even if you're not getting the damage from golem,
Yeah.
you're getting like 21.5% life. Like it's kind of insane, or 22.5.
Yeah, I have a bunch of asterisks all over my calculation here with on top of crit chance, res, essence, attack speed, and max life. Because the max life, exactly what you're saying, is like kind of insane, right? It's 22%. It's 22.5 maximum life,
It's a
which
free
is
hardened bones. Like,
it's big, yeah. It's even more than effectively hardened bones if you are stacking barrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
well, kind of.
Well,
but it's
after the buffs to Stealing Storm, like yeah, pretty much.
yeah, the shielding storm is so good. Like now I don't feel bad tearing Ultimate Shadow off of every single build because shielding storm can actually just generate barrier. Crazy, I know.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, here's the other thing I'm kind of wondering about. Because right now, barrier generation, the affix basically does nothing.
It's so bad right now.
But I'm
Which
wondering, so the affix barrier generation,
Oh,
you-
okay. Yeah.
If you put it on your gear, enjoy your 1% increase in barrier generation per tick. It's like insanely bad.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there was something weird about the fact that Shielding Storm was applying barrier based off of base life, and maybe that was something weird with the calculation. I don't know. I don't think so. That's a little bit of like copium there, but that was something I wanted to look at.
My understanding of barrier generation is that it's bugged for everybody, but I could be wrong about that. I'm like going
I'd
off
believe
like
it.
really old information.
I would believe that. Outside of, so ignoring the sacrificial aspect, which like is also now kind of really hard to fit into all of these same builds, because the question is, well, now that Ring of Starless Skies is a 1.5 multi, would you just suck the loss of stats to be able to run it? But that's like kind of a whole other conversation. The interesting thing for just the sacrificial increases, like just the increase in damage kind of across the board, Shadow Crit builds are just like 17% more damage. Shadow Dot builds are 13% more. Bone Spear is 10% more. Blood builds is almost 10% more. And Bone Spirit also just gained like 8% damage as long as you're building it according to the current
By the
law.
way, for the
That's
record,
alright.
this is nothing. Like it needed 10 times this amount of buff for any of those builds to even be remotely viable.
No question. If you take those builds as core skills, yeah, no question. They needed a 10x multi.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get
like,
an idea of what the number is, because for Blight, that's a pretty sizable increase. Like 13% on top of our 1.5 billion ticks right now. That's pretty good. On top of the fact that bosses have lost 30% of their maximum life. So
that's a big buff for
Okay, so I'm
specifically, like,
actually
light builds and stuff.
I'm
for
curious
sure.
about how they worded that, because when I read that in the patch notes, it said tormented bosses, aka like the Stygian Stone bosses that you spawn.
Yeah, I had
Right.
the exact same reaction of where I thought those were talking about pit bosses, and then Otter pointed out like those are tormented bosses. Those aren't
Oh,
like echo
God, you're
bosses.
right.
Oh shit. Sorry.
All
I
I
don't-
said for pit bosses is they're going to reduce.
adjust
They
them
didn't say
towards 60. Oh wow, I was super wrong here.
I was wrong about
Yeah, I made that
as
same
well.
mistake. So I
You,
feel
you, you know
That's
what it is?
whack.
I read this includes blood boils from, and I just put the blood bishop.
Yeah.
Blood Bishop.
I just stopped
He was like,
reading.
yes, Blood Bishop is fucking not broken anymore.
I'm
Like,
surprised
what-
they're nerfing the health of tormented. I guess that makes sense actually, right? Because of the whole exponential damage every time you fail a mechanic. So nerfing the health, they're also nerfing the damage. I guess it makes sense.
Oh wow. So it does say that health and damage levels have been reduced in the pit,
Right,
in
but they didn't give us a
general.
number.
and it's most
Yeah, I think that's-
significant for tier 60, and it's like, okay. All
I mean,
right.
I guess it makes
so
sense
if
if
you
it's like
remember, sorry, go ahead, Kay.
it makes sense if you think about it. Like, okay, if players are having a hard time meeting that like barrier of like, I'm finished with Nightmare Dungeons and I'm trying to do pits to like, you know, make my gear better, and it's like, oh, I can't do pits, and because I can't do pits, I can't make my gear better, and because I can't make my gear better, I can't do pits. Like, it's a really bad cycle. So like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with them like decreasing the floor a bit, just that way those outliers of people who can't clear pits aren't just stuck at a wall, right?
Yeah, there's a really hard wall that you hit when you first get to max level. That like where it's really hard to do like your first masterworks and stuff.
Oh.
Like, and it takes forever to grind them out. And then
I'm
like,
currently on a
once you
call
start
with
getting the
Sir K,
masterworks, your
Operator
power level
Otter, Ruse
increases
Cruz from
really
Goblin
fast.
Inc., and Sirach.
Peru.
This is interesting, though.
By the way,
Alright.
hi, Bio Boy.
Yeah, hey, how's it going, Ruse?
I've been wanting to meet up with you at some point for a long time.
Yeah, we haven't had an opportunity to talk, but luckily
Yeah.
enough people are being social now. This is great. It's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got a hub now.
I
dude.
literally screenshotted the fact that I have like all 5 of the biggest necro brains in one Discord channel right now talking about it.
So
Yeah, I like how we have our home here now, and this was like a rogue Discord we've taken over.
just stealing it.
Necro podcast.
So the only other things that are like really, really interesting that come out of this is the Paragon changes. Like Blood Begets Blood becomes a very significantly interesting and incredibly hard to get to node.
It's actually not. I'll shoot your
Incredible.
Paragon tonight for the Bone Spirit. It's incredibly easy once we rearrange some things.
Did you
Yeah,
say
Like,
for Bone
we're
Spirit?
already running it for Bone Spirit. We're already running it.
You're doing blood orbs for Bone Spirit?
With blood begets blood, yes.
Oh my, no.
Sirach's on like a different.
Sirach, don't do
like-
this to me, boss. I don't want to
Bro,
run.
Giga brain.
Dude, I'm over 2 bill hits consistently right now. Like,
Yeah, but I don't want to run Corpse Tendrils makes blood orbs.
I
don't wanna
understand
do
that,
this.
but you're getting an extra 15%. Not a true 15,
30.
but we're going to 30% now.
Although,
Like-
how does because you're not going to get 10% per orb, right? So you're going to have to pick up twice as many orbs to cap it now.
No, I would assume
It's going to be
that
just
they've
the
changed it.
same.
Because
If
it
they
just
did-
says maximum though. Like if you read
Yeah.
the patch note.
But I have hope in my heart. I have
All right,
hope in my
let me-
heart.
Or
All right, hold on.
How well has that worked out for you, Backer?
I have hope in my heart, and you can't take this from me. Dun, dun,
Let
dun,
me-
before
dun,
patch
dun.
notes came out, I was
screenshot you
hoping Bone
something.
Sphere was going to get buffed by 300%. So that didn't work out.
So that particular ship did not sail. It turns out.
All right, so I sent you a DM, Micro. It's got
All right.
that's the 7th board on my Bone Spirit.
Is blood begets blood?
It's by
Shit.
itself.
Just to get to the
Oh.
multi?
Yep, and it's not negligible, but that's like 160 additive also on the way there.
So hold on real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Wait,
6,
Sirach,
7,
can you
8.
send me that Paragon too? Because I
10,
realize I should be
12,
running this in my
13,
Blood
14,
Artisan
15,
build, and I'm
16.
not, and I'm realizing I'm kind of dumb for not realizing I should be.
You're not
running
running
I'll
blood
shoot
begets
you-
blood in your blood artisan's cross build.
Yeah.
I'll
Well-
shoot you what I just sent him, but I'm not
You good,
finished.
homie?
I'm not finished working on
I'm
it.
telling you, you're going to be doing 120s with that build. in
How?
Secret
Okay,
City
no.
even
Let's
before the
let's
patch.
back up. Hold on, because now I realize it. Because you're doing multi-target bosses. That's how you're generating enough blood orbs fast enough. How do you do it on a single target?
I'm using this on single targets right now too. It's not you're not keeping the full multi up the whole time by any stretch, but I lost 4% HP to get there. I'll shoot it to you when I'm done. I'll-
If it goes up to 10% per orb, I think you got something legit. I'm gonna be a mean guy. I think you might be approaching Spirit Bomb, unless so I go do this to a pit boss. But I'd be more than happy to take a look at
I'm
it.
clearing. I just cleared a 117 with it.
I'm not saying you're
and
not going to put in work. I'm wondering how much of this bonus you actually have, like second to second, as far as a DPS increase.
The
That-
thing
that's
is,
my pushback.
But any
the
decrease,
trash is half the dungeon still.
yes, and I'm clearing that remarkably faster.
Yeah, it's less for
Okay.
the boss, and it's more just for like being able
just
to
a
like clear
time
through the
sink.
dungeon.
Like, yeah, I mean, if
Okay.
half of our time reduces 1 minute, that's pushing more damage on boss anyway. So it's
Sure.
still, speed is DPS at this point.
I can see that. I can
So-
concede that point. You
And
have a
and,
point
and
there.
at the sake of losing 4% HP, okay. Even
Mm.
if it's only up for a third of the boss fight, you're still
Mhm.
getting more DPS.
Where are you getting your vulnerable from, by the way? Are you running a vulnerable on
I'm
here?
running Bone Prison.
Oh,
Yeah, Bone Prison.
there you go, okay.
Bone Prison,
gives
Bone
us-
Spirit, so good, dude. It's
Bone
stupid.
Prison's
It-
given us 42 max essence also.
I wanted to test Bone Spirit, and I started putting on the build, and then I started looking at the stat requirements. I was like, "Fuck this, bro!" I'm just doing
Dude,
this to
it is without question the most stat heavy build that actually does something.
yeah.
I think
yeah, it
that
is.
something like Infinimist is actually the most stat heavy build. It just doesn't do anything. You put together
Hey,
all
I'm
these
cooking,
stats.
bro. Give me some time. I'm
Okay,
cooking.
okay.
I'm gonna get it.
Is
Ruse
it-
is a believer.
Are
I'm
you
gonna
doing
get it.
are you doing damage over time or are you doing crit?
Damage over time. I'm playing. I'm just playing like the whole 100% uptime on AOD shit with like Black River, and I got like 100 mil dot.
Yeah,
pick,
sure. Yeah. Yeah,
So
I can see that.
we'll see.
that-
I think like
The,
Well,
the only problem is like you cast Blight 3 times and you also get to 100 mil and you're like, oops, I really put in a lot of time and
Yeah.
effort to do this. But not to dissuade you.
but then you can't play Black River though. Which is
Exactly.
kind
Then you can't, or you can, and you could just be a really bad Blight build, like I
of
suggested.
true. But you got to put Black River in your thumbnail, dude. That's 20% more.
You
clicks.
have to. It's really important. The thing I'm actually super interested in trying out now is take Blight, max out crit, max out lucky hit chance, run Doombringer, and
God.
because they
X
buffed
Files.
Doombringer, run
God.
Doombringer, X Falls, and Elemental Surge temper.
I like it. I honestly,
I actually think it's gonna
genuinely like how that
crack.
sounds.
I think it's going to be cracked. It should approach something like a 30% chance to proc like after all your multipliers just for Doombringer, and then it's more like a 60 to 70% chance to proc X Falls.
Buffed it
And-
by 100%. What's it?
Yeah, they doubled the damage on it.
What's it at right now? Can't
With
believe you're actually
with
making me
a
look at this.
with a focus and the weapon, it's currently at like just over 11,000. So I think it's a proc base of 22 to 24k.
I don't think it's gonna be enough, man. I don't know. I tested
But
X-Falls at
also
the start of the
X-Falls.
season. Dude, how hard are you getting your X-Falls to? Because when I was testing it, I was only getting it to like 10 mil. Like it was like almost bugged bad.
I was getting 40 mil, but like even
Oh, were
then,
you?
40 mil was
Okay.
just not where it needs to be.
That's the problem. It's 40 mil when it procs, which is not good enough. That's why Infinimist wasn't good enough. Especially even with Crippling Darkness, even with like 13 ranks to Crippling Darkness, I walked up to a boss and it laughed at me as it just watched me spin in circles in Blood Mist, and I was like, what is happening? Why am I doing
Well,
no
that-
damage?
By the way, that 100 mil dot tick I mentioned was in single target. I actually think this build can do something. I don't know. It's not going to be like an S tier build, but
Well,
It's
that's
definitely going to be a build.
to like pull back the curtain, because I've already made the update to my build guide. I swapped Infinimist strictly over to the Black River damage over time setup, and it's just like, here's all the multipliers for corpse explosion damage.
were you
Enjoy.
playing the AOD or are you playing Bone Storm?
I was not playing AOD. I do like AOD though. I do
I
like
think you-
AOD.
Dude, otherwise you can't ever kill bosses. Like
Mhm.
you're just sitting there for like 5 years, dude.
I like AOD. Is it like AOD with Fast Blood?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
I like
basically
that.
the Blood Artisan build, but like bad.
Hey. Okay, all I'm gonna say is the Blood Arson build only exists because you saw me playing this.
Man,
No. I have screenshots. I have receipts of talking about this beforehand. Okay.
We're going into the logs, bro.
Alrighty.
No, you were
Um,
talking about it before because of the Bloodlands version.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get Bioboy, you get 100% uptime on AOD and single target. With
I
this
believe
setup.
that. Oh yeah, 100%. I believe that. I believe
Which
that
is-
100%.
It's a decent amount of corpses. I need a lot. Like I need to fix my gear.
Here's the thing though, like, it is a decent amount of corpses. It's like still half as many corpses as you need. Like I think
Yeah.
they
Yep.
need to, I think they need to revert the lucky hit chance proc on
Dude.
corpse explosion immediately.
Yeah.
They need to
I
hire a high
agree.
schooler who's in advanced algebra so that they can
No.
fix this game.
No.
Holy
No.
No? Too advanced?
No, it's I don't like shit. I don't like shit on people's intelligence like that. I would appreciate if it didn't happen around me.
Okay, sure. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of the changes that they make are like way too small or way too big or like not where it needs to be.
I
Like-
think that I will definitely
Like
agree
lucky
that
hit
there
nerf.
are some heuristics that are being used which are leading to changes which I don't think have a high accuracy rate of properly changing stuff. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Like my reaction when I saw that they nerfed it was just to go, why do you hate arguably the only interesting necromancer build that exists
Well,
currently?
The other thing is when those nerfs happened, that was when we still had the vampiric powers. So,
Mhm.
and the vampiric powers for that build were crazy good because you got 100% uptime on vulnerable, you
Yep.
got the 60%, like you just had a lot of good powers. And then they took out the powers and it was like the build sucked again.
It's like,
it
oh,
did
wild.
before.
And
Yeah.
like walking into the pit, I'm like, oh, look at all this stuff that on paper should absolutely just crack this build into the next stratosphere. And then you realize that like every once in a while critting for like 10 to 50 mil is
Doesn't do anything.
nothing.
Yeah, it's
And you
awesome.
go, wait a minute, what happened to these numbers?
Dude, it's crazy. Like, have you played Bone Spear or looked at like the minion Bone Spear shit?
Bone Spear, I have not played yet.
So basically, like
You
the
don't-
bone
don't.
spears are hitting for like 20 mil or something. So
Mhm.
it's like 20 mil. It's 1 in every 6 attacks from your guys, right?
Mhm.
In pure minions, my mages are attacking 3 times every time they attack, and each attack is doing 50 to 60 mil.
Yep. Yeah, it's
And
absolutely insane.
And like when you compare that to bone spear, it's like what the fuck? Like they're doing 10 times as much damage per attack, and they're attacking like 8 times as much, and they proc every time instead of every 1 in 6.
Yep.
They're doing like 100 times as much damage.
Well, every time somebody's like, "No, dude, you're sleeping on Bone Spear mages," I'm like, "Well, I'm not sleeping on it. I played it
Not
during
really.
the PTR, and it does nothing." And they're like, "No, you don't
Yeah, well-
get it." And I go,
And
"Well,
the
hold
cool
on."
thing now too is we have pits, so it's like someone's like, "Oh, you're sleeping on a build? Okay, link me a clear." And they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
nobody's done it." It's like, okay, they're like,
No,
well,
we
there are claims on the Korean forums that somebody cleared a 120, but they didn't provide video proof, whereas the 115 does have video proof.
Yeah.
But
that's
115,
also,
I mean, that's cap, right? That's the cap it's hit so far.
yeah, but that's also pure actual Bone Spear, right? Just like,
No. 112 is
No,
pure
minion.
Bone Spear. Minions have cleared 115. Bone Spear minions have cleared 115. Pure Bone Spear has cleared 112.
is it
And
just
there
like,
is there's an air quote claim that somebody's cleared 120, but again, there's no video proof to that other than the 115 that was cleared.
okay.
Now the caveat to that is the guy's gear for the minion Bone Spear build was like the most ungodly build like I've ever seen. That
Mhm.
guy's gear was insane.
like as we were discussing earlier, though, like the Korean RMTers for minions have the same level, so I think it's actually a pretty apt comparison.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
yes, if it's max clear as 112 when literally all
Yeah.
other minions of it's not comparable.
Yeah. It's like so much worse. I just meant like if that guy was in perfect gear and the Korean RMTers are in perfect gear and the RMTers with minions are clearing 15 pits higher, it's like it is what it is at that point. It's kind of what I'm saying.
All right, now it's time to try to roughly calculate the damage increase according to all the other changes and try to put that into a format that anybody will care about me talking about. So that's what I'm up to now, boys.
Good
All
luck.
right. Yeah, thank you.
TL
Good luck to you all as well.
The TLDR of this patch is that, hey, all of the non-meta builds are now strong enough to get masterwork materials. And all of the meta builds are stronger than they were before. Go have fun. That's the TLDR of the entire process.
Well, no, because like everybody got nerfed with holy bolts. Like I
Well,
think
yeah,
you're
but
I think you're gonna
minions
see
are-
people struggle busing.
Well, I
Mages are doing
have
128
looked.
already.
I personally have looked at it through the lens of if you're using holy bolts, I just actually cancel that from any like standing in my head.
Mm.
So
Yeah, keep in mind, minions with no holy bolts already do 128s. They're
Yes,
closing in on
right.
after this
and
patch.
minions
they'll be doing
and
130s.
minions with if you take minions and you take out holy bolts and you put in the patch notes, they are stronger. They are better than they were.
I don't agree with that.
No. He's
Wow.
saying without considering holy bolts.
If you take holy bolts out of the equation, like considered now, like if we just look at minions and they're clear without holy bolts, and then patch notes drop, minions are stronger.
Yeah, they're gonna go
Oh,
up
sorry.
like 1
I
to
thought
2
you
pit levels.
were assuming minion. Okay, sorry. I misunderstood what you were saying.
Well,
Because
are we talking about because of Gravekeeper glyph? What did
So
minions get?
Gravekeeper is buffing Golem, but mages are just better than Golem in my opinion at this point.
Oh,
And
mages are slightly better now. Yeah.
And you can play sacrificial in mages now instead of grasping veins.
You would not put sacrificial. I'm sorry, boss.
Do the math, bro.
I did the math. It's a 12% increase in damage.
And what do you think grasping veins is? Also, I'm on 100% crit chance, by the way, or I can without grasping veins.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it has such a dead aspect slot that, like, a 10% damage modifier is more than it was using before because Ruse was literally running Grasping Veins, which was doing nothing for him because he just couldn't find anything better. So, like, you're right, it's awful, but, like, there just wasn't anything better.
It should be about 5% more damage or something at the end of it. Pretty minor, but something. Also, I see you hovering Starless Skies. That's another thing I was thinking, actually. With Decrepify.
I know some minion players are advocating pretty hard for Ring of Starlit Skies on mages.
If this works for mages, if this works for mages, a 50 multi.
Yeah, it does work. The problem is it doesn't it doesn't have crit, and does it have attack speed? I think it does, right?
It has crit chance.
Has crit
no
chance.
attack speed. Sorry, that's
no attack speed. Correct. Yeah, so
the attack speed is always what like made.
And you're also missing out on ult cooldown, I guess.
Yeah, that's a fairly big deal in single target. In AoE, you have 100% all the time.
Yeah, because you don't have 100% uptime of Army of the Dead on minions.
with this you do. And
So-
target with
so hold on.
mages full this, but you have to have like perfect gear to do it.
So what is so what are the offensive aspects that you're currently running? It's Blighted, Army of the Dead, or Unyielding Commando, Reanimation.
and then
Do you need
Grasping
Frenzied Dead?
Veins. Yes.
Okay. So it's Reanimation, Blighted, Unyielding Commander, Frenzied Dead. So you have one aspect slot open, and you're not running Intercom? Now that
No,
you can
Grasping
stand
Veins
still
is better
enough?
than Enter. So we basically like initially we were trying it with Enter. The problem is like it's standing still is really hard. And the other thing is that the like because you're sacrificing the golem, you're getting the crit damage as well. So you have 50 plus you have the crit damage from golem, and then you also have like a lot of additive crit damage because crit damage is like the biggest additive damage you can roll. So all those things combined make Grasping Veins better for the crit chance. Obviously the crit damage doesn't work, but the crit chance makes it worth it.
Right. So, and I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood before. I thought you said that your build at this point no longer requires Grasping Veins, and that's why you have an aspect slot open.
Oh yeah. So to clarify, basically I have a bunch of like GA attack speeds, and I'm slightly over attack speed cap. I'm at like 110 or 115. Basically, if I swap those to GA crit chance or get items with both, then I can actually cap crit chance without Grasping Veins with the 6% elixir.
Right. And then
So that's with like I would have to make changes to my setup, but it would be doable.
would it actually be easier to get there just using the attack speed potion instead? Since isn't the potion additive damage?
Yeah, the potion doesn't add much damage. You're just playing for the crit chance.
Yeah.
The attack speed one is decent too. The problem is you already have crit chance and attack speed on every piece that can roll it besides necklace.
Yeah.
And so gaining some attack speed doesn't really help you because the only thing you'd be swapping the attack speed to on your gear is max health, which you just get one shot by everything anyway at that pit level. So like, why even bother?
Mm.
So like that, and like obviously you're dropping like full offense. You just accept if I get hit by mechanic, I just die, or full defense. You drop full defense.
So then help me do this one more time. You would take to run sacrificial. You would take a 12.9 multi over Intercom, which is a 10% multi that has an upside of outperforming.
Well, what'd you calculate at 12.9 at with what crit chance?
At 100% crit chance. The sacrificial bonus goes from a 35% multiplier to a 52.5% multiplier.
Oh, you did it without Memento Mori?
No, that's with Memento Mori. Memento Mori doesn't increase Golem. Memento Mori only increases skeletons.
Oh fuck, I forgot about that part. Oh, then yeah.
Oh, okay. I gotta tell you, Roos, I'm sitting here running the numbers in my head, boss, and I'm like, help me understand this, because I'm looking at numbers.
Damn it! Okay. We're still running Grasping Veins. Fuck me, dude.
Sorry, boss.
It's over.
Well,
it's all over.
You got to go play Sork now or something. I don't know what it is.
It's time to go. Sork.
What do you think I'm doing?
I thought I was like, maybe if we could do 130s, maybe we'll be cool. Even though everyone else is doing fucking 150s or whatever at this point. But no, not even getting to 130s. GG.
It's so unironically, over this last event, I went to go play the Sorceress, and might I say, how come they get to have a cool skill tree with every single skill having the potential of impacting every other skill, and dude, like each passive that I pick has various impacts on.
Whoa, hold up. You went to go play the PTR for what?
What?
You said you went to go do a PTR.
No, during this past event, I played the Sorceress. So during the Goblin, the Mothers, whatever, and the Goblin rides, to level up as a new character.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Here's what I think happened. Here's what I think happened. They revealed D4, right? Like, and they revealed all the classes. Like, it was like 8 months or a year before release. And then people were like, "Where the fuck is Necro? Like, why are there only 4 classes in this game?" And they were like, "Oh shit! Like, this is bad PR. We need to get Necro in this. Like, people really want it." Okay, like it's half cooked. We're planning on putting in the expansion, but like let's just try to wrap it up real quick and put it in the base game. That's what I think happened. Because you remember, Necro was not initially supposed to be in the game, and they added it later. And I think it was half baked, and they never finished cooking it.
It's like it's honestly upsetting coming, like, obviously I love the Necromancer, right? Like, even just
Yeah,
doing this,
we all do, bro.
even just doing this basic arithmetic to walk away being like, everybody got 15% stronger. It doesn't matter, but you got stronger. I love that. Just like, I showed up to the Sork. I didn't look up any build guides. I didn't look up anything. I found like the ice whatever pants, and it was like, if you freeze stuff, it'll do Frost Novas. I was like, cool, I like Frost Nova.
Yeah.
And then I found Ice Blades, and it's like, if you freeze something, it shoots Ice Blades. I'm like, that's cool. And it's like, here's Blizzard, it does Ice Shards. That's kind of like Ice Blades, and you're definitely going to think these two effects are the same until you read them later. And I'm like, sick, I'll do that too. And I'm just walking around spamming Blizzard everywhere, absolutely owning the Helltide, not doing any dick damage to single targets, but I don't care. I'm a cool Blizzard. I have Deep Freeze. I have an ult that looks cool and does stuff. And I was just like, why doesn't the Necromancer get to have fun? Why?
Yeah,
why don't
all of our aspects are just boring. Like,
Why is it that Otter will never touch Necromancer for the rest of this season?
it's
Say that now.
it's
You say
rough,
it now,
buddy.
dude. You'll be back.
You'll be
dude,
back.
I will
They
say
all
though
come
that at
back.
least the minions are cool now. Like,
Minions are cool.
the minions are genuinely interesting now.
Minions are cool.
And you have to make tough decisions.
Minions are definitely cool, and I think there's something to be said about that. It's just it's rough, man.
Yeah.
It's rough just being like, oh wow, I get nothing. I don't get to have anything. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
Cool.
keep your head up, dude. We're getting 25% all res from Warrior Sacrifice now.
Hey man, if you have Memento Mori going and you do sacrificial, that's 60% resistance,
Dude, think about it. Like,
bro. Like, what
Think
else are you
about it.
doing?
dude, okay, this is what I think Blizzard needs to do, unironically. I think they need to change, like, you know, all those like random poison resist and darkness resistance nodes we
Mhm.
have? They need to change those to say maximum instead of just base. And
Oh,
then
that
when
would
you
be cool.
spec into like shadow stuff, it should give you max res, and then when you spec into poison stuff, it should give you max res. And I think potentially rolls on gear 2, but at least Paragon should say max.
I think they need to look at that. Was the other thing. I'm looking at the Sorceress Paragon. Every
Dude.
other node says damage reduction, and I'm like, what is? How come you get to have this? My
Bro.
my node says says resistance. Why do you get to
Yeah.
have this?
If you really want to
unfair.
tilt, go look at like on the Maxwell leaderboard and look at the rank 1 Necro clears and compare it to every other class and just watch the boss fight. The Necro
Oh
players
my God,
understand the
dude.
fights inside out and backwards. They know every fucking mechanic. They know how to dodge
Mhm.
everything. They play it
Yep.
perfectly. And the other classes, like you can just tell from watching it, they literally don't know how the fights work. They like actually don't know. They're just standing in Lilith waves. Oh my God, dude, it's so crazy.
Why would I need to dodge anything if I'm just permanently
Well, yeah,
invincible
they don't
and
have
can
to
be
learn the
unstoppable?
fights. Like,
Who
it's not even
cares?
that they're bad. They just don't have to learn it. Like, why would you spend the time to perfect fights if you don't need to?
Who cares?
Why would you ever do that? That would be silly. No,
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
like the first time I got super tilted, it was I don't know, like 2 weeks in maybe, and I showed up to Rob's stream because I needed to ask him a question, and Homeboy is in a 125 back when I had like just cracked 100 on Blight, and he is standing in the middle of the Den Mother, and he's swinging his attacks and he's doing stuff, and then she goes invisible and leaves a poison little ground right on top of
Yeah.
him, and then 3 different boss mechanics happen, and he stood completely still just swinging, because when she comes back she pops back in relative to your position, and then he just kept swinging at her after she did her jump attack at him, and I'm like
So tilting.
What the fuck?
why don't you have to move? Those will kill you. He goes, oh no, I have 400,000 life. Why would I move? And I went,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, one more time, just that number
It was.
out loud.
It's so weird because it's like every class is so much tankier than Necro, and it's the thing that I don't get. That's kind of like Heart and Bones is 25%. That's a big freaking number.
That's huge.
Tyrael's Might is insanely good as well. And then like you can also run like Harlequin or something, and like even if you're playing all of that, you still just die to everything. Like,
You could also put on
Yeah, we
might,
ran-
like it just doesn't matter. Like,
it just,
yeah, we
yeah,
ran,
exactly.
We were in the Blight the other night with Shaco and Tyraels, and it was just like, why am I still taking more damage than a level 50 barb?
yeah, how am I
Yeah.
still dying?
Yeah, and
The,
I think what it is a bunch of small. They have a ton of like 6%, like 6% max life, 6% DR, 3% max life. Like I think other classes are just like covered in that stuff. And then like Rogue has that roll on their chest piece. Like one roll on their chest piece is worth like 60 DR or something like that.
hmm
Like, and Necro just can't compete with this shit.
I've been running with Boiler, his support druid at night the past couple nights.
Yeah,
and
my boy Boiler.
He's bringing in the crazy DR,
Or
and it's
druid.
just like, wait a minute, why am I alive? I just stood in this.
Dude, it's
It's
crazy.
it's wild, man. It's just
You play with a druid and they fucking roar, and like you just stand in mechanics and it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's like
it's wild.
wow.
I thought
We,
the roar didn't affect echo mechanics.
It doesn't, but like
it doesn't.
everything
But we're
else.
talking about. Pit bosses are a joke now.
Even like Duriel, like you can just stand in like everything Duriel. Like I remember we did Duriel, like we started like when we started doing Uber Duriel, I was like it was hard for me. And then like I did it with Ace and he was on Druid and it was like, oh, I could just stand in everything now.
It's the last thing I'll leave y'all with was I forget when it was, but we were talking, like somebody brought up Heart and Bones. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like, this is awesome. We did lose like 80 DR on our pants and on our chest walking into the season.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of nothing. And somebody had the audacity to be like, nice complaining from a necromancer where you get free DR in your skill tree. And I went,
Oh,
Dude.
hold on. I literally don't know what the other character skill trees say. Hold on. And I just opened up the Barbarian and I typed in damage reduction to our search filter and like 6 things glue. And then I went to Druid and like 10 things glue. And then I went to Necromancer and it was Death's Embrace and Standalone. And I went, wow. Wowie. I can't
you
even.
don't even want to play standalone in many builds anymore. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm like,
the worst part is when they're like, "Oh, you have Blood Mist. Blood Mist is broken," and I'm just like,
it's just worse Flame Shield. Like,
it's worse Barb face tanking. That's what it is.
yeah.
actually,
Why would I
that's
press
true.
Blood Mist when I can play Barb and just take the damage?
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, aside from minions, you don't do damage in Blood Mist, and even with minions, you lose damage anytime you're in Blood Mist because you're not procking a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
Even in Infinimus, like, oh, go on.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was gonna be my point. I was like, even Infinimus back in the day, it's like, yes, now I'm finally. I can't cast anything else, and I can die when I get out of this, but now
At least when I'm in it.
Now, while I'm in it, oh man, I'm sure I'm doing blood-soaked damage. Let's go, baby. Yeah, but all right, I do have to skedaddle.
Well, I was just gonna say one thing. I was just gonna say that I had a lot of fun going back and forth, and I think it was season 2 with the Infinimus builds.
Mm-hmm.
I hope there's like no hard feelings.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, boss. No, thank you for addressing, but no, not at all. I'm not. I am very much a. If I do have a problem, I will voice that problem, as I generally want everybody to be comfortable in the ways that they see fit. So, yeah, but thank you, man.
Okay. Well, it's good meeting you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you as well. All right, boys. Good theory crafting. Good luck. Obviously, ping me if you've got questions and stuff.
Yeah, thanks for dropping in.
Sounds good.
Yeah, of course, boys. All right, be good.
Easy.
Peace.
All right. Oh. What was T about the Infinimus thing? Oh, sure, yeah. So, and again, literally no hard feelings. It was during the time after in season 2, a lot of people started asking the question, what about Black River with Infinimist? And back then, what was it? I think it was the vampiric powers, right, in season 2? The vampiric powers added on enough damage over time damage to make scaling the corpse explosion damage high enough to perform at the same rate as Infinimist, going the crit version of the build. And basically, I have been pretty anti Black River for a long time because people would go like, why aren't you using it on the build? And I go, I'm the crit focused version. And they go, you should do damage over time. And I go, it doesn't really work that well. And if you could get the gear together and stack effects high enough, you could generate enough corpses for it to perform very well. And at the time, Ruse had put out a video that was comparing their clear time against the clear time of one of my videos. Like, hey, they do this boss at this point, I do it at this speed, so it's better. So then I started getting a lot of questions about that. And like, there was a little bit of problem where it was like, the clip was from a video where I was actually very specifically highlighting how slow the build is to start, but if you were to swap out these pieces of gear, how much faster it would be. So it wasn't a very valuable comparison. And I just got a lot of questions about it. And then I had to put out a video that was like, here's why I do not like Black River, to like more generally speak about it. To like, here's exactly how the math works out in my head, and this is how I feel about it. But it was basically like people saw two people having different opinions, so those two people must have it out for each other, which is just like not a thing. But that's the tea. The internet interprets anything that is opposed as angry. Was this a hotfix? This is patch notes for Monday. They did not fix any bugs, which sucks. I'll be honest with you. I assume there are bugs that will be fixed in season. So what we have to remember is that like basically the whole schedule has kind of been sped up. So these are balance changes. The PTR is going to be for what season 5 is. Season 5 is almost certainly where they have fixed a lot of bugs. So there's no real reason to fix it here when we're going to see it in the PTR and then it'll get implemented for the next season. That's what I'm assuming. Or they might be unannounced for sure. Okay, so now I think we have the sacrificial changes done. And I think we can talk about this. It's not a bug fix, it's a mechanical change. So, although it is, well, hold on. Oh, no, because they do say unintentionally. It was unintentional. So here's the weird part. They put it under bug fix. They say it was scaling unintentionally. But what they said is that it now deals damage as a percentage of weapon damage, as opposed to a percent of enemy health. I don't know how that's a bug fix. It's kind of like not a bug fix at all. What up, Conspire? Conspire, Ultra Turk, Nature's, Loose Moose, thank you very much for the follows. Jugger and Unicorn Reach Around, thank you so much for the subs. I appreciate you. Unicorn, thank you for the 6 months. Zocker, Doc, thank you for the 40 bits. Cope Does, Calamer, Numbness, Guillermo, thank you for the follows. Also, thank you for all the likes on the stream on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you haven't liked the stream yet, consider clicking that button. I would really appreciate it. Do it now. Click the button. Sacrificial can be used while using minions. Sure, if you're sacrificing the golem, yes. I think it's a bug fix because they said they would only do, but you know what? It's kind of interesting. All right, let's do a video on this. All right. Cost, thank you so much for the prime. I appreciate you. Alrighty. So we just got the patch notes for the upcoming 1.4.3 build. This will be launching on June 17th, this upcoming Monday, if you're watching this video on the day that it comes out. And while probably the biggest news is the change to how Holy Bolt's Elixir work, that's not what we're here to talk about. Although KEKW, to all the builds that were relying on Holy Bolt's Elixir, it's just going to be significantly harder for you to be able to push with it, although it still will do damage. And I almost surely assume there will be bugs with it. But that's not what we're talking about here in this video today. No, we need to talk about the fact that the developers saw fit to just increase every single one of the sacrifice bonuses in the Book of the Dead for the Necromancer. And it's kind of difficult to understand how much these various changes all really add up to on these builds. So I did what I always do. I made a data sheet where I crunched every single number comparing the old and the new. On top of that, comparing the old and new when considering Memento Mori, which gives you a 60% bonus to all of this. And on top of that as well, they also increased the sacrificial aspect. Sacrificial says that your sacrifice bonuses are increased by another 25% multiplier. And upcoming in this patch, it's actually going to be a 50% multiplier. So that means that you have your base, various damage bonuses. You get a 60% bonus from Memento Mori and then a 50% bonus, all of these multiplied together. So we also included the difference if you include Sacrificial to understand just how valuable is this aspect now on your build if you wanted to slot it in. So let's go ahead and go through the math just so that people have a better understanding of what to grok here and what to really hold on to, and then carry that through to talk about the relative changes and at what points your build have gained damage increase. Because basically every single non-minion build and even Shadow Mages have gained increased damage from the changes to the Book of the Dead. So when we're talking about the sacrifice bonuses for the Book of the Dead, we're talking very specifically about sacrificing our skeleton warriors, sacrificing our skeleton mages, and sacrificing potentially our golem. Each one of these carried along with it some type of bonus. So sacrificing your bone golem gave you 10% increased attack speed, sacrificing your blood golem gave you 10% increased maximum life, and sacrificing your golem gave you a 30% damage multiplier if you successfully crit. The other thing to understand is that we also had Memento Mori, which if you put 3 skill points into this and you sacrifice your skeleton warriors and your skeleton mages, their bonuses were increased by 60%. Keep in mind, Memento Mori does not look at and does not care about your golem, and you don't need to sacrifice your golem to get this bonus. As such, Memento Mori does not impact the golem part of these calculations at all. But when we look at what the original amounts for all of these things were in order, going from warriors to mages to golem, you could get 5% crit chance from sacrificing skirmishers. You could get 20% resistance from sacrificing your defenders. You could get a 15% shadow damage boost from sacrificing your reapers. You could gain 15 essence from sacrificing your shadow mages. You can gain a 15% vulnerable damage multiplier from sacrificing your cold mages, and you can gain a 25% multiplier from sacrificing your bone mages for overpower damage. And then, like I said, 10% attack speed from your golem, 10% maximum life from your blood golem, and then 30% multiplier when you crit from your iron golem. Now, they just increased all of these numbers. So crit chance is now 10% crit chance. It's actually just like pretty good right off the bat. You get 25 res. It's a 20% damage multiplier from Shadow. You get 20 essence. Oh, and on top of that, they actually added the fact that now that when you sacrifice your shadow mages, you also gain an essence generation percentage, which is really nice. Basically, you use the maximum essence option in the early game when your gear is weak enough where this outperforms the vulnerable damage multiplier. And this also just makes essence generation easier to manage before your gear is fully online. So I actually really, really like that change. And it's also just generally good for leveling in the early game too. But they increased all of these numbers. Basically, damage multipliers all got an additional 5%. That's not the same thing as them all increasing by 5%. They all got 5%. So from 15 to 20 and from 25 to 30. And then from 30 to 35. So when we talk about just how much damage do these increases impact on their various builds, if you sacrificed your shadow reapers, you're now doing 4% more damage. If you sacrificed your mages for vulnerable damage, you're also doing 4% more damage. If you sacrificed your mages for overpower damage, you're now doing less than, So when we talk about the damage increase just from these changes, ignoring basically every other thing, like don't worry about Memento Mori, don't worry about Sacrificial, just the damage increase you get right now for having these buttons clicked, you get 4.3% more shadow damage, 4.3% more vulnerable damage, 4% more overpower damage, and 3.8% more critical strike damage. Now, just to very quickly touch on how do you do that math, we used to have a 20% damage multiplier. And just for the context of how do you even get to this number, like how do you determine what the relative increase in damage is? What you do is you compare the new multiplier, which is a 1.2 times multiplier, against the old multiplier, which is a 1.15. So the difference in doing 1.2 times your damage as opposed to 1.15 times your damage is 4.3478, blah, 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 blah. So that's how we get to these numbers. It's really important to not just look at what the relative increase in the multiplier itself is, but actually how much it increases your damage by. Because it turns out going from 15% to 20% is a 33% increase in that multiplier, which is true. That is accurate. You have increased that number by 33%. That is not the same thing as saying that we have increased our damage by 33%, because the multiplier itself is 100 plus this bonus and not just this bonus in a vacuum. Here is where we can already calculate just how much stronger a certain build has become, which is the Bone Spirit build. Bone Spirit sacrifices its mages for an overpower multiplier, and it sacrifices its golem for crit damage multiplier, but it continues to use defender minions because we need them to generate essence through Requiem, etc., etc. So the Bone Spirit build, just based off these sacrifice changes, now does 8% more damage, and basically, we also have to do a little bit of a calculation, which will probably be its own video, which talks about what essence opportunities there are here, considering that we can get more essence out of sacrificing our minions, and whether or not that means that we should use the overpower multiplier or the essence multiplier. I've done some napkin math, and it's absolutely that the overpower multiplier is just strictly stronger. But again, I'm going to do a whole video about that because I know people are going to have a lot of questions. But yes, I've thought about it. Yes, I have a little note here. I'll also include this page here so that people can go take a look at these numbers if they want to themselves. And then the only other thing to note is that you're going to see like these little asterisks next to an X where increasing crit chance. Does this increase your damage? Technically speaking, it might if your build needed more crit chance, or if your build can now afford to drop a crit chance stat on your gear. Technically speaking, this crit chance could increase your damage. How would I personally calculate that for you? Physically impossible to do that. And that's going to require just like a lot more testing later on to figure out like what that means for these builds and what it does allow you to change. Most notably from the things with asterisks, the attack speed and the maximum life sacrifices for the golem are actually very significant. Because oddly enough, there are builds, most notably Shadow Dot builds, that don't care about sacrificing for the crit damage, but would love to get more maximum life as well as more attack speed from these sacrifices. So that is important, that is valuable, that will increase survivability or damage output. But again, just something that's very, like nearly impossible for me to calculate without looking at a specific build and its specific stats. Okay, that's it with the caveats. Now let's talk about the impact from Memento Mori and how much more valuable these stats are for sacrificing your minions. So here in column F, these are the values that you used to get from having Memento Mori. So instead of getting 5% crit chance, you would get 8% crit chance because it's a 60% bonus on top of the 5% that we had previously. Now, with the increase to the base stat, you're getting 16% crit chance from sacrificing your skirmishers and having Memento Mori. That's how we're going to get to the numbers in here, column G, and how much their relative damage numbers are going to increase from here. So again, like you get 16% crit chance. You could have 40% resistance from defenders. Not that you need resistance at all, but it's cool that the number gets that big. We're now getting a 32% multiplier for shadow damage. We're getting 32 essence. Again, 32 vulnerable damage multiplier, a 48% overpower multiplier. And then again, remember that your golem is unaffected by Memento Mori. The reason why we have old Memento Mori over here is because technically speaking, this is based off of the old stats that we had, and they did buff the golem. So new Memento Mori is actually just representative of the fact that these numbers are now new. I also have notes here, which is Memento Mori doesn't affect golem, but golem in general got buffed. Now, how much of an increase is this change in Memento Mori? So assuming that you're sacrificing both of your skeletons, how much more damage are you now doing because you have these 3 skill points in your skill tree? For shadow damage, it's a 6.45% damage increase. Same for vulnerable. For overpower, it's a 5.7% increase. And then very specifically, just because we don't do this analysis anywhere else, the change, and now here's where we can start to look at some builds, basically every single non-minion build, and technically speaking, also shadow mages. I realized I didn't include this one here, but technically speaking, Shadow Mages are now just that much more stronger because they do sacrifice their Golem. But now we can start to look at how much stronger the different types of builds on the Necromancer have become if they are sacrificing their minions. So for Shadow crit builds, this is Sever, this is Infinimist, this is going to be a new Proc Blight build I'm going to work on as soon as I get a Doombringer, since they buffed that as well. But your Shadow crit builds, ones that do shadow damage, vulnerable damage, and critical strike damage, have become 17.6% stronger. That's like decent. If you saw my most recent video where I basically said all of the core skills can't actually scale because their damage numbers are too low, this is not nearly enough. They basically need like a 10 times multiplier to be on the same scale as things like Ebon Piercer and Bone Spirit and minions. But they have become 17.6% stronger. They are doing 17% increased damage for doing nothing else. They don't have to change anything else about their build. They're just that much stronger. Shadow dot builds, so this is Blighted Corpse Explosion, as well as Shadow Bloodwave or Shadow Surfer, and Blight, most notably, are 13% stronger. Bone Spear is now 10.5% stronger. The blood builds in general are just under 10% stronger. And then again, Shadow Mages have gained 3% damage just from this change because they sacrifice their crit golem for more damage. Now let's talk about the sacrificial aspect and how much this increases your minions. But now let's talk about the sacrificial aspect, because the interesting part about sacrificial is that it's really hard to kind of calculate how valuable it is. It doesn't have a direct one-to-one correlation between increasing your sacrifices means that you do this much more damage. Like, you can't look at it as it is right now and go, oh, it's clearly a 50% damage multiplier. Well, no, it's not. It's increasing 3 different multipliers that you have and increasing their values by 50%. And you need to look at how much that is versus how much it was to figure out the actual increase in damage, and then put all those things together to figure out whether or not this aspect is good for you to use on your build. So right now, putting sacrificial onto like a one-hander, like not putting it onto your amulet and not putting it onto your two-hander, people are going to ask a question like, oh, why wouldn't you do that? Wouldn't it make it better? Remember, doubling up something like Blighted gives you a 240% total damage multiplier. Doubling up Sacrificial is not going to get anywhere near those numbers, but they are pretty substantial. So if you were to sacrifice your Skirmishers, have Memento Mori, and put on Sacrificial at a 50% bonus, you're now gaining 24% critical strike chance, which is 8% additional critical strike chance, which starts to beg the question of, if I'm sacrificing all my minions, do I need something like Grasping Veins for the crit chance, or can I actually just run Sacrificial? Yes, you lose out on the multiplier too, but we have to think about these numbers in more interesting ways just outside of pure damage to figure out how much utility they add to your build. Similarly, you can gain 60% resistance. Not that you need it, but you do. Your shadow damage multiplier becomes a 48% multiplier. You get 48 total essence. Your vulnerable damage is a 48% multiplier. Your overpower damage is a 72% multiplier. And because Sacrificial does work for your golems, you can either gain 22% attack speed, 22% maximum life, which is actually really significant. That is a huge amount of maximum life there. Yes, it's the difference between 22% and 15%, but that is a massive, massive increase. And then on top of that, your Golem crit multiplier becomes a 52% multiplier. But what does that mean for you in the actual expected damage increase from each one of these numbers? Shadow damage, this is a 12% increase in shadow damage. It's a 12% increase in vuln damage, 16% increase in your overpower damage, and a 12 or nearly 13% increase in crit damage. Okay, great. What does that mean for my build? How much value does putting Sacrificial on my build do right now for me? Well, it's going to similarly follow the increases that we just saw in build damage outright, because they're going to be using the same types of multipliers to figure out this math. So your Shadow crit builds, again, Sever, Infinimist, a Proc Blight build if I can find myself a Doombringer, is gaining a 42% multiplier from putting this aspect on. That's actually really big. If you think about the fact that we currently use Damned, which is a 50% damage multiplier, the Shadow crit builds could gain a 40% multiplier by putting this aspect onto their build right now. That's basically like putting on the Ring of Starless Skies from before, although that one has been buffed recently, but that is a sizable amount of a damage increase. For Shadow Dot builds, it's like gaining a 27% multiplier. So it's like gaining Conceited Aspect, except you don't have to have Barrier up, and it outperforms Conceited just a little bit here. Bone Spear, similarly, it's like gaining a 25% damage multiplier. Blood builds actually get to enjoy a 31% damage multiplier from this aspect. And similarly, Bone Spirit builds also get to gain a 31% damage increase here. That's fairly significant. For the bone... No. Nope, 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 nope. Whereas the Bone Spirit build would only enjoy a 12% damage multiplier here, so slightly outperforming Inner Calm if you haven't stood still for 3 seconds, but generally not better than any of the options. So while I don't believe that Sacrificial is all of a sudden going to make a huge splash across the majority of builds, there are definitely scenarios where you kind of had a free floating aspect slot, and you were looking for whatever the best option is, and at the very least, if you are sacrificing the minions that are relevant for your build, you can enjoy better than conceded uptime and better than conceded performance by putting Sacrificial on, as opposed to not having run it previously. This does require you to sacrifice all of your minions to get the benefit of it, obviously. These are very specifically talking about the sacrifice changes and the sacrificial glyph and the sacrificial aspect. So always keep that in mind. These numbers are going to look vastly different if you're only sacrificing like 1 or 2 or one or the other, or only one type of skeleton as opposed to the other ones. So always just keep that in mind as well. In general, how do I feel about the Book of the Dead changes? I do appreciate the fact that they said, hey, the Book of the Dead sacrifices are now just like not up to snuff with the amount of value that you gain from running your minions. And it was always meant to be a legitimate secondary form of playing the Necromancer. You either did use minions or you didn't use minions, and they were supposed to be roughly equivalent in output or options for builds to benefit from them. I do like the fact that also, like early on, once you start sacrificing your minions, gaining a huge amount of crit chance or attack speed or maximum life or just straight up damage multipliers is now significantly better than it was previously. And that these numbers are significant. They're not enough to bridge the gap with the issues in my previous video, but they are significant, and I do like that Sacrificial, most notably, is an aspect that you can quite legitimately consider running on your build, and you should enjoy the benefits of it if you have a floating slot where you just can't really figure out how to fit in another aspect. Now you always have a good option as long as you're sacrificing your minions. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more analysis on just how impactful all of these things are across the board. Typically, I tend to do like this big chart that says like, here's how much stronger these builds are in total and what is relevant for them. I'm going to create that. But I thought that the Book of the Dead was kind of substantial enough where I could put all these things together in one easy place for people to look at so that people can kind of sit down with it, digest it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, concerns, ideas, if you came up with like an alternative like conclusions based off of all this. I'd love to hear from you. If you're brand new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're a minion sacrifice enjoyer like me, go ahead and toss a like onto the video as well. If you wouldn't mind doing that, I would deeply appreciate it. But as always, thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps, and I look forward to seeing you when the patch goes live. Okay, first video done. Okay, let's go back here. We'll do this. I should also stand up because it has been 3 hours and I didn't stand up all throughout yesterday's stream. Okay, next, what we're going to do is look at current builds and just write down notes. fuck it, we'll do it live. Do you mind giving a bit more detail on why Bone Spirit wants to sacrifice mages? Because it's a larger damage multiplier than having them out. How long roughly does it take Rogue to get the Marksman Finesse Temper for crit damage to use for other classes you're starting level 1? I have no idea, boss. The Necromancer doesn't have to do that type of stuff, so I've never timed it. I assume the answer is an amount of hours. Grim says 4 hours. I would trust him. But the Necromancer doesn't have to do that because we don't have anything that really, like, we have Deathless Visage, which can benefit from that. Which build is Shadow Crit? That is Olden Finamist, as well as Sever and a Blight proc build. Angus, thank you very much for the follow. Blood begets blood is a very interesting change.
Thank you for all the work you put in so we can be better at D4.
Yeah. Bayonet, thank you so much for the 2 months, Boo Boo. I appreciate you. All right, let me get up and stretch. I'll run ads now so we're not interrupted later. You should get up and stretch as well. Drink some water. Get a snack. Yo, holy. We have more viewers on YouTube than on Twitch right now. That's insane. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, if you could throw a like onto the video, I'd really appreciate that. That helps me out a ton, but that's fucking insane. I haven't had more viewers on YouTube than on Twitch ever before, I don't think. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate y'all. I'll leave this up on the screen just so that people can read it. All right, I'll be RB. Ah. All right. Okay. What up, Cyber? This is too much. Just play the game and have fun. Fuck you. Thank you for telling me I'm playing my video game wrong. Have you looked at all the changes? I feel like I'm doing part of something big. Got to watch my first video get created. Nerd out with the other Necros. That was a good time. I also haven't had a chance to talk to Ruse yet, so it's good to be able to talk to him too. Yeah, that's what I expected. All right. Okay. That's fine. All right. So. Do you think we're able to reach 275 essence without Requiem aspect? Do I think that you're able to do that? You are, but you will do less damage. Do I have some good Blight build cooked up? I do. We already have a Blight build. It's fully updated on Maxroll. Are you sad no BlizzCon this year? I am. I'm actually like very sad, Watt. I'm glad we were able to meet at the dude. Being at the meet and greet. All right, we're gonna very quickly talk about BlizzCon, right? Because not a lot of people have this context. So this past year, I was invited out to BlizzCon by Blizzard. I was invited out there for a couple things. I got to go to the Blizzard campus, and I got to try out the Gauntlet. And was it Abattoir of Zir? I forget. It was two of the things that were coming to the game. I got to try them out. I got to give my feedback to the developers. I just got to meet all the developers. Like, obviously I've talked with them in meetings and over calls and you know, like just being part of the partner program, obviously, but I got to like meet them in the real world. And Joe Shelley gave me a Korean Diablo 4 like promotional soda can. That was fun. That was cool. They also gave me this little guy. They gave me the little loot goblin. I love him. I love him very much. But it was nice to go meet them. One of the reasons why I was going out to BlizzCon, though, was that they were going to have me live stream and interview Andrew Jackson, or Adam Jackson, rather. Andrew Jackson, our president. No, Adam Jackson. Which was just like huge for me. That was massive. It was just awesome to be able to like sit down, ask him questions, etc. And they were having a meet and greet for Diablo content creators. So who's involved in this meet and greet? Well, it was Riker, Amaranth, the streamer Amaranth, the content creator Amaranth, and it was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be Darth Microtransaction. But Darth Microtransaction got injured and couldn't make it out to BlizzCon. So at the last minute, they were like, hey, do you want to do a meet and greet? And I was like, me, Macro Bio Boy. Do I want to do a meet? I mean, I'll do a meet and greet. Who else is part of it? Riker and Amaranth? Guys, hey, I appreciate y'all's confidence in me, belief in me. I'm not Amaranth. I'm not even Riker. But that was very, very cool. Just vibing to the music. It was so fun. Dude, I watched it. Because here's the thing. Basically, so here was the thing. Everybody who was in line, who was just like straight up Diablo fan, was there to see Riker. Everybody who was an Amaranth fan was there to see Amaranth. Then there was me at the end. And I wanted to make sure that I engaged every person visually, because I know that we're dealing with a bunch of nerds, right? So not everybody who is like comfortable to do something may want to, like, if I'm not engaging them visibly, they may feel like, oh, they're whatever, right? Morgan, thank you very much for the follow and thank you for the prime. I appreciate that. So I would make eye contact. And like, so like Watt was one of them. Watt here in chat. I got to meet Blue Rex, who's actually a Blizzard dev who apparently likes my D2 stuff. I got to meet another person. I'm sorry, your Twitch handle is escaping me right now. If I saw it, I would remember it. But I got to meet like 6-7 people. There was this one kid. There's this one dude. He walks up to Riker and he's like, oh my god, so excited to see you. And he gets his thing signed. And they had like given out posters, so everybody was signing the posters. And my table was like weirdly slanted. So if I put down the Sharpies, they would roll off. So I just had to hold the Sharpies in my hand like, duh. And then they would like stop at Amaranth and like, oh my god, a fucking real celebrity, right? And then they would like, he just like walks up to me. And he puts out his poster, and I have the Sharpie. I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on, man? And I go to sign it. And he just looks at me and goes, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a Diablo partner. I make content for Diablo 2 and Diablo 4. And he's like, oh, cool. Thanks. I was like, yeah, no problem. No problem, boss. But like 5 or 6 people who like were like, oh shit, it's you. I was like, me? I mean, I am here. Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely here. What do I have to pay you to let your Tism run while building a Frozen Orb, Sork? You don't have to pay me. I was looking at Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb is definitely a very cool build. I will have to check out the Sorceress more after the patch drops. Everybody likes the type of stuff that they like. It's not really about comparison, just strictly from a numbers point. At that point, I think I was at like 40,000, maybe no, I was at like 30,000 subscribers on YouTube and like 18,000 on Twitch. And you're talking about Riker, who's like going for 1 million subscribers, and Amaranth, one of the most famous people on the internet currently. The numbers, it was just a difference of numbers. But it was cool, man. It was cool. So most of the time I would make eye contact with people and they would give me the, hey, and like keep walking, because they don't know who the fuck I am. And why would they? They shouldn't know who I am. But we were stationed right outside of the Overwatch finals. And the Overwatch finals had some banging like EDM going. Thank you, Watt. I appreciate it, man. It was a very cool experience. It was cool meeting people.